Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We move on now to our next session, which focuses on how we, as teachers, can make writing meaningful to our students. This workshop is presented to you by Mrs. Hanaa Alsaedi, a language instructor at English Language Center, UQU, Makkah. She holds a master's degree in English literature and has been teaching English for 10 years. She is interested in improving English teaching and creating a motivating and engaging environment for students. And now, I would like Mrs. Hanaa to take over the platform, please. You may start your presentation.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Zahra. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Is my voice clear?
Yes, it is clear, dear.
Okay, great. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the second workshop in today's session. Allow me at the beginning to thank the great team that is behind the success of this important and useful event. And from my side here, I send warm thanks to you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining my workshop that I hope will be useful, enjoyable, and meet your expectations. Okay, as you can see here on the first slide, the focus of this workshop is on how to make writing meaningful to students. And in this workshop, I will not present one specific approach or one strategy, but I'm gonna provide you with a collection of practices and techniques that hopefully will help you, inshallah, to make the writing activities and the writing tasks meaningful to your students. Okay. The workshop is divided into three main parts. Okay. In the first part, the emphasis will be on what does meaningful writing mean? So when you hear this expression, meaningful writing, what does it mean? The second part is going to be about why is it important to make writing meaningful to students? What are the benefits that students get when writing activities are designed to be meaningful to them? And the third part here will be on how can teachers make writing meaningful. And this, in my opinion, is the most important section in the workshop because I'm gonna talk about the practices and the strategies that teachers can apply to make writing meaningful to students. Okay, but before we go any further, let me ask you this question. Since you are all, maybe most of you are English teachers or interested in teaching English, and I'm sure that you have a good experience in teaching different skills, the different skills in English, including listening, speaking, reading, writing, grammar, and vocabulary. Here I have a question for you. What skills do you like to teach? Please, in the chat box, use the skill or skills that you enjoy teaching, that you like to teach. You can choose more than one. Okay. Yes, speaking, reading, grammar, listening, writing. Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. So I think that the majority of your comments, I can tell that the majority of your comments maybe like teaching grammar, speaking, reading, right? Yeah, but only a few seem to prefer teaching writing. And this, by the way, is consistent with what many studies have proved, that for many teachers, teaching writing is the least favorite subject. And how to develop students' writing competence remain an arduous task for English teachers. So many teachers, they say it frankly, they consider teaching writing to be challenging or hard. Why? Here the word arduous, what does it mean? The word arduous here, it means that the task is hard, the task is difficult, and it requires a lot of efforts to accomplish your goals. Okay, but why? Why do you think that writing is considered to be an uneasy task to teach? Yeah, because maybe they do not write, yes. According to students. Yeah, limited, let's say, lexical knowledge and yeah, it depends on all skills. Yes, excellent. Yeah, a huge language competence. Yes, sure. Yeah, it requires many energetic soft skills. Yes, excellent. Yes, and it is a productive skills which requires more faculties. Yes, excellent. Yeah, it is time consuming, yeah, for the teacher and for the student also. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much for your valuable opinions. Okay, in addition to what you mentioned here, let me just quickly shed light on some reasons that make teaching writing a little bit, let me say, difficult. Okay, here, why is it uneasy to teach writing? In addition to the reasons that you mentioned, here, writing is a complex process which requires many stages and different skills. Yes, there are many stages before that the student should follow before he or she reaches the final product. And also, writing requires different skills, including mechanical skills, like, for example, clear handwriting, like good spelling, like capitalization, punctuation, word choice, and also a good structure. And there are also organizational skills, cognitive skills, communication skills, etc., etc. Okay, so writing is a complex process. Number two is related to the students' negative attitudes towards writing. I'm sure that, okay, in your classrooms, many of you in the educational field come across some of these complaints about writing. I don't like writing. I don't know what to write about. I'm not a good writer. And the negative attitudes here come in different forms. Maybe it is a dislike towards writing. Maybe some students, they do not like writing in Arabic, so they also will not writing in English. Or maybe they lack self-confidence in their ability to write, or they lack, or they are shy to express their opinions, their ideas, their stances to their teachers and their classmates. And let me say that maybe the majority or the vast majority of students, they do not take writing assignments and activities seriously. They just, they just view writing as just a laborious school hoop to jump through rather than a useful skill worth developing. And we, teachers, our role here is to do our best to change this mentality. How? Through making writing tasks meaningful to our students. Okay, and the third reason is related to ideas generation process. Okay, we know that when students generate ideas, they depend on their memories, experiences, previous knowledge that are stored in the long-term memory. But because they are Arabs, okay, all the memories, all their knowledge are stored in Arabic. So when we ask our students to generate ideas from the long-term memory, and we ask them to write in Arabic, of course, they will come up with plenty of ideas. But when you ask that student to generate ideas about the same topic, but the level of the student is low, he lacks or she lacks the knowledge of language, then the result is what? No ideas. So long-term memory minus knowledge of language equals what? No ideas. So the lack of knowledge of language will hinder or maybe block the process of generating ideas. And this is why sometimes we find that we can't do anything if our students lack competence, when they are not competent enough to generate ideas. Okay, so as a result of all the previous reasons, I think that making writing tasks meaningful to students is a must. We want our classes to be useful to our students. For this, we have to do our best. We have to do many efforts to try to make the tasks meaningful to students. Okay, what does meaningful writing mean? In simple words, the word meaningful means having a meaning or purpose. When something is meaningful, it means that it has a meaning or it has a purpose. Yes, of course it will have an outcome. Yes, Mr. Salman. And when a task is described as meaningful, this means that task is important. It is useful. It is serious and goal-oriented. Yes, I agree with you, Mr. Sohrab. Okay, and when the tasks or activities are designed to be useful, to be important, and to be serious, I am sure that our students will get the most out of them. Why is it important to make writing meaningful? Why? What do you think? In the previous slides, we together discussed the reasons that make writing teaching an uneasy task or challenging. Now it is better, okay. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Yes, okay. Sorry for the interruption. Okay. Now, tell me. Yes, as I said in the previous slides, we discussed the reasons that make writing teaching uneasy or challenging. In this part, we will cover what are the benefits that students and teachers get from making writing tasks meaningful. Come on, what do you think? Motivation, excellent. Yes. What else? People will communicate easily. Interesting. Yeah, to make students to be familiar with writing. Excellent. Okay, makes writing important and useful. To pursue higher education, yes, this is what we teachers look for. We want to do something that will be useful to students, even in their personal life, even after they graduate. Yes. Helps when they write research, yes. They will enjoy and they will understand, yes. And to encourage students to start their writing, yes, excellent. Okay, okay, thank you so much for, okay. To visualize the real world, yeah, I like this. To convey their feelings clearly. Yeah, to follow the right process of writing, excellent. And to write creatively. Okay, thank you so much for your valuable opinions here. And I'm sure that I cannot say more, but anyway, let me show you what I prepared for you. Just to, yeah. Yeah, so here, number one is motivation and engagement. And these are two important terms in learning. Motivation refers to the internal desire or the internal drive that leads the student to work hard to accomplish his or her goals. And this motivation is related to the energy that comes from the inside. But engagement, on the other hand, refers to the degree of attention, to the degree of interest and passion that students show while doing an activity. So it is like the relationship between the student and the activity itself. And we, teachers, we want our students to be motivated and to be engaged. How? If you want this to happen in writing, we have to do our role by preparing meaningful tasks for them. Okay, motivation has long been viewed as a key element. Motivation was at least as predictive of achievement as was intelligence. And when writing tasks are designed to be meaningful, the learning environment will be motivating and engaging to our students. Teaching, okay, this is the second point here. Why is it important to make writing meaningful? It is related to the importance of teaching writing in general. That teaching writing fosters the acquisition of many skills. Okay, so here Scott declares that students will make as they compose in the target language from the start. She stresses that students who are taught to write from the start become better foreign language learners. Okay, so it is useful to introduce writing to our students from the beginning of their language learning. For this, it is important for us, teachers, to make writing meaningful to them because we want them to we want them to use writing as an important tool for learning. And we also, teachers, we can use writing as a support skill for practice of other language skills. For example, we can use writing to teach grammar. Like when we ask our students to write, for example, the events that happened the day before just to practice the past tense. Or we can also ask our students to use writing to check their comprehension of reading. So, making writing meaningful to students will help us or will help our students, okay, to accelerate the language learning. Okay. The third point is to create more enjoyable and interesting tasks. Okay. Here, this is important, especially with students of low level, because students who is low in English, okay, when they write something, they tend to focus more on form rather than on meaning. And what they write usually is memorized words and repeated patterns. So here, writing will be like something boring. It will be dull. It will be like routine. So when we changed the tasks to be meaningful to our students, of course, the tasks will be more enjoyable and interesting. Okay, the last one here is, and it is a big goal here, is to build a community of writers. We want to improve our students' skills. We don't want our students to say that they learned how to write by copying others or by developing writing in the workplace. We don't want our students after graduation, we don't want them to say that they had never received a formal instruction in writing. No. We want to make them writers from now, from our classrooms. And here is a couple of tips on how to build a community of writers. Number one is to encourage your students to read a lot. Because one of the best ways to become a good writer is to become a good reader. Because writing is sometimes seen as the flip side of reading. And of course, when the students read a lot, okay, they will be exposed to different styles, to new vocabulary, to like sophisticated styles in writing. So it is very important for our students to read a lot. The second tip that we want, if you want to build a community of writers, is to encourage your students to keep a writer's notebook. What is a writer's notebook? It is a notebook, okay, which is always with the student. It's always available. And when the student wants to write like about his observations, about his passions, about some situations, about accidents that he met or accidents that he come across in his life. So the student take out the writer's notebook and start writing. So the goal of writer's notebooks is to encourage students to start writing and to change writing as a habit that the student will practice every day. And this notebook can become in the form of paper notebook, or they can use digital notebooks, like for example, Google Keep, like Evernote, like OneNote, and this nice application, writing, diary, letters, prose, to name a few. Okay. Here we will cover the most important part in this workshop, which is how can teachers make writing meaningful to students? Okay, and in this section of the workshop, I will show you 2 prompts or 2 scenarios, 1 and 2. And I want you to type, kindly to type in the chat area, which scenario or which prompt sound more meaningful to you. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, here is the first scenario. It's like a dialogue between a teacher and a student. Yes, take your time to read it. Okay. And this is the second scenario. And tell me here, how does the teacher make the writing meaningful to the student? Which one sounds more meaningful and why? Yes, excellent. The second. Yes, the second. The first one is correct. Okay. But the second one is more meaningful. Why? Because here the teacher, when the student said, when the student says here, I don't have a computer, the teacher says what? Do you have a mobile phone? Then the student says yes. Then the teacher says, great. What do you use it for? Then the student says what? For many things, I guess. Then the teacher says what? Interesting. Then write about the uses of your mobile phone. So what is the technique which that the student the teacher applies here is personalization. Personalization. And personalization here is, let me say, at the core of meaningful learning. What does it mean to personalize the writing task? It means that the teacher modifies and customize the writing task for each student's strengths, needs, skills, experience, and knowledge. So try to help the student to find connection, personal connection between the student and the topic. In this case, the task will be meaningful. The task will have meaning in itself. Why? Because students usually are engaged and motivated when the writing activities meet their interests and needs. Okay. But I know that it is impossible for us teachers, especially when we are dealing with adults, sometimes it is impossible to know the interests or the strengths or the needs of our students. So what can we do here? We have to encourage the student to find himself, he himself or she herself, to find personal connections between her life her society, her family members, let me say the current events, and the topic. Okay, so finding connections between the topic and the students' needs, the students' interest, will help us to make writing tasks meaningful. We have to quit that model, one size fits all. We have to quit it because we have to treat our students as individuals with differences, with different needs, with different interests, and with different knowledge, of course. And if we apply personalization to our classroom, of course, we will be effective teachers. Okay. The second technique that we can apply in our classrooms to make writing activities meaningful is authentic writing. What do we mean by authentic? Yeah, excellent. Real. Yeah, authentic means real. So authentic is beyond the world of the classroom. And authentic writing is real world writing, or writing that is real. And when we provide our students with authentic tasks, of course, we provide them with the opportunity to practice writing as real writers. So, an attempt to model writing in everyday life and what real writers do within the writing process. How can we change, or let me say, prepare authentic tasks for students? By making sure that the writing task includes 3 components. What are they? Purpose, audience, and context. Purpose here refers to what? It refers to the goal. Purpose here, it refers to the goal. You will not find a real writer who writes without having a goal in mind. Audience refers to the reader. A real writer should have a kind of reader or audience in his mind, even if the reader is the writer himself. The last one is context. And by context, we mean the situation of the reader or the writer, the time, the place, or the circumstances. If you provide your students with these 3 components, then you will give your students the chance or the opportunity to practice writing as real writers do in real life. Look at this prompt. Write a thank you letter to your teacher at the end of the semester. Here, what is the goal? What is the purpose? Write a thank you letter to your teacher at the end of the semester. Yes, excellent. So here the purpose is to thank the teacher, or to thank, yeah, to thank. And who is the audience or the reader? The teacher. And what is the context? What is the context? Yes, cool, maybe. Or the end of the semester. So when the student works on a prompt like this, okay, believe me, he will or she will write just like real writers do. Okay, now I'll give you two prompts and I want you to decide which one sounds more meaningful, which one is authentic, let me say. Come on. In the first prompt, you are inside the car. It stops frequently because of the traffic jam. This is the context. Write a text message telling your friend that you will be late. What is the purpose? Okay, to write a text message telling, okay, that I will be late. And the audience is my friend. But look at the second prompt. Okay, the first part is the same. The context is the same. But then here, write a text message says that you will be late. Okay, now if you ask your student to write a text message says that you will be late, okay, then the student will be confused. I am writing to whom? Who is my audience? Who is the reader? This is not real writing, right? Okay, excellent. So purpose, audience, and context are maybe the most important or common elements that will help students to write authentically. Here about the benefits of authentic writing. Teachers that use authentic writing activities find that their students experience greater growth in the ability to write and comprehend new genres, because now they will write a letter, a thank you letter. Then they will write an email. Another day they will be writing like a descriptive paragraph or informative paragraph. Okay, so you will give your students to practice new genres, many genres, not only a normal paragraph. Also, students themselves. Students enjoy writing that purposefully engages them with the real world and is therefore authentic. and do not enjoy writing that they perceive as merely schoolwork. They do not enjoy those kinds of homework. And students are not only motivated to write when you ask them to write like real writers. They are not only motivated to write, but are more successful in doing so. Okay. Here is another, or let me say other two prompts. This is the first one. And here is the second one. Please tell me which one sounds more meaningful to you. Okay, excellent. Yeah. Yeah, most of you, if not all, agreed that the second one, the second prompt, sounds more meaningful. Can you tell me why? It's purposeful. Yes, it's motivating, more specific. The purpose is clear. And here it is how. Yeah. How. This is a very important word. How. Okay. Yes, excellent. So the second one here sounds more meaningful. Why? Because here the teacher applies what is called problem-based task. Problem-based task. So in the first paragraph, in the first prompt, the teacher here says what? Write a paragraph about the effects of bullying in school. I just want the effects. Maybe the student will not find such a prompt attractive. But in the second prompt, write a paragraph about how we can stop bullying in schools. So here, there is a problem, and I want the student to solve this problem. And we want that students, especially adults, they like to sometimes like they like to give to feel that they can solve problems. They like to deal with challenging tasks like this. So what is the technique here? It is problem-based technique. So if you want to give your students a meaningful task, try sometimes to choose tasks which requires students to work and to solve problems. How can you do it? First, you present students with an authentic problem whose solution is unclear, and then you ask them to suggest how to solve that problem. And when your students engaged in this task, of course, your students will develop new skills and acquire new knowledge. So they will not only submit their homework, but they will also develop many skills, and they will expand also their knowledge about the topic and about the world. And this is what we teachers look for. Writing in response to a specific problem makes students more interested in the assignments, makes writing easier, and encourages students to enjoy the challenge and work harder to find solutions for that problem. And students will be performing the real work of writers. We sometimes call writers reformers because they want real world writers. They write to solve problems. So we want our students to play that role, to consider writing as a social action, not as homework. Okay, now let's move on to the next technique, and I'll give you 2 scenarios, and I want you to choose which one sounds more meaningful. What do you think? At the end of the class, the teacher asks students to do the writing task at home. Do it as homework. That should be submitted next week. But look at the second scenario. Yeah, the second scenario for sure, yes. In the second scenario here, the teacher changes the writing task to be more meaningful. Why? What is the difference between the first scenario and the second scenario? In the first scenario, the teacher applies what is called product approach. But in the second scenario, process approach. What is the difference between the two? In the product approach, the emphasis is on the final product. What I care about as a teacher is that piece of writing to be submitted on that day. But when I am applying the process approach, the emphasis on the stages of the writing process. And maybe I evaluate the students along these stages, not to evaluate the final product. In the product approach, students start with a model to imitate individual because they will do it at home. So what can they do? They just will look at the model at book, imitate it, and submit the homework. But when you apply the process approach, of course, students will start with brainstorming ideas at the class collaboratively together, okay? And then they complete the other stages of the writing process together. Product approach is a text-based, but process approach is a task-based. So don't assign writing, but teach it. In this way, you will help your students to find the writing tasks meaningful. I am sure that because teachers have many things to do and a lot of content to cover, it is time-consuming to apply the process approach with every writing assignment or with every writing section, but at least try to do it at least once in the whole term or in the whole semester, just to make your students aware that this is the correct this is the correct process when you want to write something, that there are stages, revisions, drafts, feedback. Okay. Now here we have two scenarios that, of course, will lead us to a new technique. So please read the two scenarios and tell me which one sounds more meaningful. Yes, excellent, Dr. Mohammed Sarab. Yeah, I can make like a combination between product approach and process approach, especially with low-level students. I can give them a model to imitate, but I also teach them the process of writing and to work on writing assignments collaboratively and together. Yes, excellent. Okay, so here the second scenario is more meaningful. Yes, why? Come on, what do you think? Here, in the stage of revision, yes, students here work in groups. Yes. Okay, here it is related to the stage when students wrote their first drafts. Okay, and then we ask them to revise or review for each other. Here we are seeking for peers revision or assessment. So in the first scenario, individually, students read through drafts, respond to the questions on the rubrics that are given by the teacher, and they write general comments like good job or like needs more detail. Okay, then they return the drafts back to their classmates, and that's it. But in the second scenario, the teacher divided students into a group of 3 or 4, okay? And each student read his or her first draft, while the others are listening. Then the listeners mention what they like in their classmates' writing. They ask questions about the unclear parts. They check their interpretation and listen to the writer's justification. Okay, which one sounds more meaningful? The second. Why? Because in the second scenario, here, the students act just like real writers when they meet together, when they discuss their ideas together, when they check the interpretation of the other writers, and they listen to each other's justifications. Okay, and this is called what? authentic discussions. So encourage authentic discussions during peers' revisions. Always teach your students how to talk in meaningful ways about one another's writing. It is not enough to say, for example, good writing, well done, needs more information. No, it is not enough. Teachers here need to teach students to engage in observation and interpretation of their classmates' writing, not only feedback and grading. And when my classmates discussed my first draft in details, of course, the writing task will be more meaningful, okay, compared to when I only receive normal remarks like, for example, well done or good job or okay, etc. So this is the second technique that you need to follow if you want to create authentic, meaningful writing tasks in your classroom. Okay, now please read, kindly here read the two prompts and tell me which one sounds more meaningful. Okay, why? Why it is the second one? Why is the second one is more meaningful than the first one? The first one is okay. The first one is correct. But the second one is more meaningful. Excellent, yeah. Because in the first prompt here, when I say the teacher says what? Social media has negative impacts on people's life. What are the reasons? So here the teacher imposed his or her opinion on the student. So just tell me the reasons. So the opinion here, okay, is correct. Just give me the reasons. But in the second prompt here, the question, do you agree or disagree and why? This question makes a big difference. Why? Because when I ask my students to agree or disagree, to express their opinions, of course, I am encouraging them to think critically. Critical thinking, which is a very important strategy in learning and in teaching. Writing activities become meaningful when they lead students to be critical thinkers, to be active, and to be able to express their individual voices and personal opinions. And writing activities also that require critical thinking enhance students' skills that are related to paragraph organization, to cohesion, to coherence. Okay, The last technique that I would like to share with you to make the writing tasks more meaningful is using technology. Technology will help students view their writing as more than exercises for learning to write, as more than obedience to teacher instructions, but rather as a unique form of social action. And there are many ways, okay, that you can follow if you want to use technology to be meaningful to students. Number one, use word processing software. Like, for example, Microsoft Office here and Grammarly. Why? What is the importance of asking your students to type by using computers, by using word processing programs, and not to write by using hand? Yeah, check mistakes. Excellent. Correct mistakes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. There are some suggestions. Okay, and paragraph organizing, grammar, to make sure that grammar is correct. So using word processing software will help the student to focus, okay, to write, then read, reread, edit, try to find the mistake, okay, change. And this, of course, will help students to produce a neat and legible script, and will help the student to focus and to think deeply upon what he or she is working on. There is also another interesting way to use technology to make writing tasks more meaningful, is through asking your students to create captive designs for selections from their writing. So when you or the classmates, okay, when they like a piece of writing or a line or two from what the students produced, you can ask your students, okay, to put those lines in catchy designs, and they can share their designs, for example, if they have a WhatsApp group or Telegram or a blog for your classroom. And they can use what? They can use applications like PixArt and Canva. These two applications will enable students to create beautiful designs for their writings. Also, we can use technology to broaden students' audience. How? When, for example, you create a class on Google Classroom, of course, the audience will be more than you, the teacher. The audience will include classmates. Also, you can use what? You can use Padlet, which is very popular. Or you can use Storybird, with students of high level who can write creatively. So finding authentic audiences is a great way for students to feel heard. Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, so when our students, when they feel that there are readers for their writings beyond the teacher, more than the teacher, of course, the writing tasks, the writing activities will be meaningful to them. Not only homework, a piece of writing to be evaluated, but writing that holds a message to be shared with others. I am not telling you it is going to be easy, but I'm telling you it is going to be worth it. And this is the end of my workshop. I hope you found it useful, enjoyable. I would like to thank you so much for your time, for joining the workshop, and hoping to meet you, inshallah, in future forum and workshops. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Hanaa, for your informative workshop. It was quite valuable and interesting. That was the end of our second session. Are there any questions? Okay. Then we will have a break and start our next session at 1 o'clock, inshallah. See you then.